Good morning. Welcome. We'll be getting started at the top of the hour. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, we've hit that 10 o'clock mark, so I'm going to get us rolling here. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. This webinar is broken up into a few different sections, the first being a getting started demo. Then we'll take a moment to do a little quiz before we head into our deep dive session, and we'll wrap up with a live demo Q&A as well. So let's roll on in to our getting started session. So good morning, welcome. My name is Joe, and I'm a digital book specialist here at OverDrive. I'm with my teammate Marissa, a fellow digital book specialist from OverDrive. And this morning we'll be introducing you to the basics of the library reading app, Libby. So before we jump into this portion of the demo, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. We are recording our webinar this morning, and you will receive a copy of that webinar recording tomorrow morning in an email from Zoom. So that's the earliest you'll be able to access it, about this time tomorrow. You have 30 days to watch it, or you can download it and keep it permanently. You can ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar by using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. This is your only way to reach us, as we have the chat and raise hand features disabled, so that we make sure that all of the questions that are asked and all of the answers we provide go into one central location so everyone can see them. So if you have a question, tap on Q&A, type out your question, and leave that question and answer box open so that way you can see the response in the answered tab. You can ask questions anonymously, and these will be included in the recording as well. I also wanted to point out, we will be connecting iPads this morning into the webinar. So you'll see at some points devices connected on the screen instead of PowerPoints like we're in right now. Every once in a while, Zoom likes to cut off the top or bottom of the screen. When I get connected here, Marissa's going to send out the info you need in case you can't see my full screen. So that way you can adjust it and be able to see everything in its full glory. If for any reason you need those again, just pose it as a question and I'll send that your way. Now, before we dive into my portion of the demo, I just wanted to make one final note. Of course, since we are recording and we understand that when you're attending webinars like these, things at home happen. If you need to step away for any reason, of course, you'll receive that recording, but when you leave the meeting, if you do leave early, a survey is going to pop up in your browser. If you can take a minute to fill that out and let Marissa and I know how we did and what we can improve upon, we'd greatly appreciate that. Okay, all of that housekeeping stuff is out of the way. Let me roll around in my office here and grab my iPad. This morning, I will be taking you through the process of downloading the Libby app and getting signed in for the very first time before I hand things off to Marissa, where she will cover the basics, everything you need to know to function within the Libby app. Now, as I mentioned already, Marissa and I are using iPads this morning, but the Libby app is a completely free app available on Apple, Android, and in your computer browser at libbyapp.com. Now, whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad or like a Samsung tablet or a smartphone or in your browser at libbyapp.com, no matter which one of those you're using to read or listen, all of the experiences in Libby will look exactly the same regardless of device. The only difference you're going to see is where we're going to download the app from, and I'll take you through that right now. So for my Apple users, we'll be headed to our blue App Store icon. If you're on an Android device, you'll be headed to the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or multicolored triangle. Just need to go wherever you typically would to download apps. So I'm going to tap on the search box and let's type in Libby, L-I-B-B-Y. And then I'm just going to tap that enter, because when I do that, Libby's usually the first result that pops up. We can see right here, Libby by OverDrive. It's that maroon app icon with Libby reading her book. Now you'll see on my screen it says open. That's because, of course, I already have Libby downloaded on my device, but on yours it will say get or install. Get if you're on Apple, install if you're on Android. So tap get or install to download that free app. Give it a minute and follow any instructions on your device's screen. May ask you for an App Store password. Once Libby's all downloaded, we'll leave the App Store and head over and find that freshly downloaded app on our screen. And so let's open up Libby for the first time. Now, when you open up the Libby app for the very first time, she has a few questions to help guide you to find your library and sign in with your library card. You'll need to do this every time you download the Libby app brand new. So you only need to do it once on one device when you're first getting started, and then going forward, Libby will remember all of that info, but you'll need to do these steps again if you decide to put Libby on other devices as well. But I have a little tip to make that faster, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go through setting up our first device. Her first question, do you have a library card? I'm going to say yes. And now we need to find our library location. So for that very first time you're getting set up, we're going to use I'll search for a library. But before we do that, I want to point out that trick I mentioned. So if you decide or have multiple devices you want to set Libby up on, your smartphone, your tablet, maybe your computer, you're going to want to use this copy from my other device when you set up your second device or your third device, so on. This will prompt you to enter a setup code, and it'll pull all of the info in. So this is basically the second and final step of this process. Of course, we're setting this up like the very first time, so I'm going to take you through that. But I just wanted to point out what copy from my other devices and why it might be important for you. So I'm going to continue on my first setup here and use I'll search for a library. I prefer that one because we can use the name of our library, the city we live in, or our zip code. I'm going to use my zip. I should say I'm going to use your zip. Marissa and I are in Ohio, but we're up here in Cleveland. So my zip's not going to pull your library up for me. So, okay, here we go. I can see exactly what I'm looking for. The library card I have is from Findlay Hancock Public Library. I can see the address here. All of that looks good. But I also want to point out this bigger name up top, the Ohio Digital Library. So while this is the name of your physical library, this is the name of your digital library. Your library is a part of a huge group of libraries that share this one massive digital collection. We actually have a couple libraries up here in Cleveland that are a part of the Ohio Digital Library. Marissa's home library is part of it. So I mention this because we'll be referring kind of going forward to your digital collection. So that will be the Ohio Digital Library. Just kind of keep that in mind. So I'll tap on that box. That's the option I want. There we go. We're not done yet. The final piece is to add our library card info and be all signed in. I just want to point out, if you don't have a library card, or if you're going to share Libby with a family member, you're going to tell them about it, who lives in Ohio, they can actually use their cell phone number to get an instant digital card right in the Libby app. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a cool feature your library offers. But we have a card, so I'm going to tap on choose a location. And now I just need to scroll with my finger through this list here until I find Findlay. It is alphabetical, but like I said, there are a lot of libraries that are a part of this. There we go, Findlay Hancock County Public Library. Just going to tap on that option. And now you'll enter your library card number. Now this is the number on the back of your card, no dashes or spaces, just the numbers that appear. And there we go. It's a long card number. Okay. Then we'll tap on next. Now we'll have to enter our PIN number. Now it's by default the last four numbers of the phone number that you signed up with. So if you've had your library card for 20 plus years and you signed up with your original house phone number, even if you don't have that phone number anymore, might be those last four. But if you don't know that card number or that PIN, reach out to your library. They'll be able to adjust that for you. So now I'm going to tap on sign in. And as long as I entered all of that correctly, fingers crossed, my internet's moving a little slow today. There we go. I'm just going to blame my internet, part of the pains of working from home while also being on Zoom. There we go. So you saw the page refreshed. That means our library card has been added. And so now we have access to our library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines, all through Libby and the Ohio Digital Library. So that's the download and sign in process. From here, I get to hand it off to Marissa. She's going to take you through the basics of what you need to know to function day to day within the Libby app, like searching and borrowing titles, placing holds, adjusting appearance settings in an ebook, and managing your notification preferences. Marissa's using a demo library from OverDrive, so you'll see a different logo on her screen, but everything functions exactly the same. Looks like you're all connected, Marissa, so I'll hand it off to you. And thank you everyone for joining us.
All right, thank you, Joe. I want to confirm that you can still hear me. Yes, okay. My cat was playing with a cord and I'm like, what cord is that? It was my microphone cord. So I had to plug it in and just wanted to confirm. All right, so good morning, everyone. Before I jump into just the basics of the Libby app, I want to point out that this is typically where people have those Zoom ratio problems. So down at the very bottom of my screen, you should be able to see a full navigation bar with 5 icons. You should see a magnifying glass, a library card, the Libby icon, a stack of books, and then a clock. And if you cannot see those down at the bottom of the screen, then Joe just put those instructions into the chat again, one more time for you. And that way you can adjust your Zoom settings and you should be good to go from there. So I am going to start the presentation or the demonstration down in the navigation bar today. We will talk about all of these icons at some point throughout the demo, but we're actually going to start to the left of the Libby icon. So you can see that Libby icon in the very center of the navigation bar. That's Libby's head. If you go directly to the left, you'll see the library card. That library card is where we're going to start off today. And you're going to tap the library card when you want to browse your entire library's collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazine. So you can think of the library card as if you were to drive to the library and walk around the library to find a book to borrow. You don't know what exactly you're looking for. You just kind of want to browse and see what the library has to offer. So again, we'll grab our library card and get to browsing. So up at the top of the page here, you'll see some filters. These are one of my favorite ways to start browsing for titles because you could tap just added and look at the newest books that the library just purchased for the collection. You could search by popularity or available now. This is going to be an entire collection of books that you do not have to join a wait list for. Subjects is very popular if you wanted to search by something that was a mystery title or a history title, etc. So those filters up at the top are a really great place to start. As you make your way down this page, that's when you'll start to see some catalog guides. These are going to differ from library to library. Yours won't look exactly like mine do, but one that I point out for you is magazines. Mine says new magazine room. Yours should just say magazines, and that is a great way for you to find and read magazines very easily. So again, yours won't look exactly like mine, but it's just another way that the library can curate content based on a specific criteria, and you can find books easily. So as we make our way farther down the page, the rest of this page is going to be curated collections that your library puts together for you. This is going to be similar to if you walked into the physical library in the summer and they might have, beach reads displayed. In the winter, that might change to cozy mysteries or some holiday recipe books. So these are going to change all of the time. History months are very common for libraries to curate collections based on what history month it is. So these will always change so that the library can show you something fresh and new that will spark your interest. So as I mentioned, the library card icon, that's going to be, again, where you browse for titles. You don't know exactly what you're looking for. Maybe you're just looking for the library to inspire you with one of their curated collections, or you use one of the filters to browse by available now. When you know exactly what you're looking for, you are specifically looking for a title or an author, that's when you're going to tap on the magnifying glass instead. So you can see that it's the first icon down there in the navigation bar. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. And I was looking for a magazine earlier. Once you tap on that, you can see there's a search bar up at the top of the screen. So this is where we can type in a title, author, magazine, or series name. I'm going to go ahead and look for the book Beach Read. So I'm searching for a specific title, and I can use any of these search suggestions if I wanted to. I always like to just tap on search down in my device's keyboard. That way it captures everything in one search. And usually what I'm looking for appears right at the top. So this was the book that I'm looking for. And as we're on this page, there are two things that I want to point out. The first is going to be how you can tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So in Libby, you can't switch between formats. You have to choose what format you would like to enjoy that book in. So if you are someone who likes audiobooks, what you're going to look for is the square jacket cover. Right underneath that square jacket cover, you'll see a set of headphones and then the duration of the audiobook. So 3 visual indicators there letting you know that that is going to be a book that you listen to. If you prefer the ebook format, that is going to be a rectangular jacket cover. So most similar to a book, and the audiobook is like a CD, a compact CD. We don't even use those anymore, but I just realized that that is why they're shaped like that. So that rectangular shape is going to be the ebook. That's going to be a book that you read. There's not going to be headphones down underneath or the duration of time. So make sure that you're looking for those when you're figuring out which format you would like to borrow the book in. The second thing that I want to point out here is the difference between a book that's available to borrow right away and a book that you have to join a wait list for. So the ebook version of Beach Read, you can see says borrow next to that jacket cover. That means it's available to borrow right now. We don't need to join a waiting list or wait in line. The audiobook version, on the other hand, says place hold. That's letting us know that currently there is someone reading every single copy that the library has purchased. And so we'll have to wait in line. And that's a really, really simple process to join the waiting list. All you have to do is tap on place hold here. That's going to bring us to the confirmation page, which at the bottom does tell you approximately how long it will take for that book to get to you. And then you can tap on this big maroon button here to confirm that we want to place that hold. Once you place your hold, Libby is going to give you a few different options for what to do next. I'm going to go ahead and say keep browsing, and that is going to jump us right back to the same search that we were making. So once I tap on keep browsing, you can see we pop back over to our search for Beach Read. And now the audiobook is on my hold shelf. Now let's go ahead and walk through the borrowing process now. So I can tap on borrow right here in the search if I knew this was the book that I was looking for. But let's say you don't know what that book is about yet. What you can do is tap directly on the jacket cover, and that will allow you to read the details page. So you'll be able to figure out what that book is about. And then Libby gives you the option to borrow from here as well. So tap on borrow. That's going to bring you to the borrowing confirmation page. Now, this page up at the top will tell you how long you have that book. So we're borrowing Beach Read for 21 days. That is the default lending period at the Ohio Digital Library. And titles do automatically return on their due date, so you never have to worry about late fees. Libby just knows when it needs to go back and sends it back to the library. I'm going to come down now and tap on borrow, this big maroon button. We're going to confirm that we want to borrow this book. And now Libby is downloading the title for offline use. So Libby automatically downloads your books for offline use when you're on Wi-Fi. And that means that once you get this check mark inside the circle here, you no longer have to use cellular data or Wi-Fi to read your book. You can take it up in a plane on airplane mode or out to the beach, and you'll still be able to access your book. I'm going to go ahead now and say open book. So I'm going to tap on that. And now Libby is giving me the option to read inside the Libby app or read on a Kindle device. So if you have a Kindle device at home, Joe mentioned that Libby is only available on iOS devices, Android devices, and then also in a web browser, so Firefox, Google Chrome, things like that, at libbyapp.com. If you have a Kindle device that you prefer to read on, you'll download Libby on your smart device, and then you'll use this feature here to deliver it to your Kindle. And it's a very simple process. Libby walks you right through it. It will require you to sign into your Amazon account. So you'll need your Amazon credentials, that sign in and password. And then Libby's going to have Amazon's going to have a button that says Get Library Book. You tap on that and Amazon will deliver it to your Kindle device that's attached to your account. I'm going to go ahead and talk about a few of the key reading features inside the Libby app here. So I'm going to open in Libby. Up at the top and the bottom of the screen, that's where you're going to have some menus, and they do kind of block that book there. The bottom menu says our reading progress. So I'm on page 1 of 293. When you want those menus to get out of your way so you can enjoy your book, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. They will disappear. And then when you want to bring them back up, same thing. You tap in the center of the screen. I'm going to drop those out of the way. And then to page forward, all you have to do is tap or swipe on the right side of the screen. So you'll see we're moving forward throughout the book. And I'm going to tap fast so we can get to a big chunk of text here. There we go. So one of the great things about the Libby app is that you can customize your reading appearance to meet your needs. So we always like to tell people every book can be a large print book. You can adjust the font if you want. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to tap in the center of the screen here. That's going to bring up those progress bars. And then up on the top right-hand corner here, you can see the A icon. That A stands for appearance. So I'm going to tap on A, and that brings up our appearance menu. Now, in the appearance menu, there are 3 different things that you can change. The first here is the text scale. I'm going to toggle on my accessibility sizes here and use this slider to increase or decrease the font size. Next, we have lighting. So I'm currently in bright mode, but I always like to point out you have this sepia or dark mode if you like reading at night and don't want that bright screen right in your eyes. And then lastly, we have book design. And this is Libby's fancy way of saying font. So these are the different fonts that you can put Libby into. I always like to point out this open dyslexic font. It is a font that might help some users with dyslexia to read. Now, I am going to quickly put these back to my default here for my next presentation, and that's because these are sticky settings. And what I mean by sticky settings is you only have to make these customizations to your appearance one time, and then Libby is going to remember that on your device and deliver titles to you with those customizations in place. So you're not going to have to come in here and change this every time. It's going to stick and stay for you. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide now up in this menu just to drop it out of the way. And then let's leave this ebook and I'm going to pop into an audiobook and talk about a few things there. So I'm going to tap on back up here in the top right-hand corner. Just remember, if those menus aren't there, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. They will disappear or reappear, and then you'll see that back button up in the top left-hand corner. All right, so now I'm on my shelf. And I talked at the beginning of the presentation about those icons down at the bottom and how I was going to cover all of them eventually. This is where I reorient everyone. So let's go down to the bottom of the screen. First, I'm going to point out my now reading bar. You can see that Libby's saying I'm now reading Beach Read. This is her way of giving me easy access to the last book that we have open in the Libby app. So I can tap on this bar here and it will jump me right back into the book on the last page that I was at. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now so that we can see that full navigation bar. So we started out the presentation to the left of the Libby icon. That Libby icon's in the center. We went directly to the left on our library card. Remember, that's where we browsed for books. So we didn't know exactly what we were looking for. We wanted to see the library's entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines, and their curated lists and filters. Then we tapped on the magnifying glass. That's where we searched for something specific. So that's where we typed in that title. You can also do author or series or magazine name. We are now over to the right of the Libby icon. So that stack of books right here that I'm circling, this is your shelf. And your shelf is going to be where all of your current loans, so those borrowed books, and holds, all those books you're waiting for. That's where you're going to find all of those. So I always like to tell new users an easy way to keep it in your mind of what tab you need to be on is to think of it like you grab your library card and you have to have your library card to go find and borrow a book. And then once you borrow that book from your friendly librarians, you drive home and you put that book on your bookshelf. So that stack of books, you put it right on your bookshelf, and that's where you can find those borrowed materials. So here on the shelf, up at the top, you can see we have some filters. We can look specifically at our loans or our holds. On the main page, you'll see a mixture of the two. So you can see I have one of my holds that's ready to borrow. I'll talk about that here in a few. As I scroll down, you can see I have the book that I borrowed with you earlier in the presentation, a magazine that I'll talk about in our deep dive into Libby, and then my last but not least audiobook here. So I'm going to open up the audiobook that I borrowed last week. Up at the top of the page, you'll see your reading progress. So I'm 3% of the way through here. Down at the bottom is our player. So you can tap on play to begin listening to your audiobook. Now you can't hear her on your end because you can hear me, but it's going on my end. The one thing that I always want to mention with audiobooks is that they are designed to play in the background. And so If you are done listening to the audiobook for the time being, you need to tap on pause and then stop that narrator. If you do not tap on pause, then Libby's going to continue playing your audiobook so that like you can listen to it while you're on Facebook or, browsing around shopping, as I do a lot, or your phone could be asleep next to you while you garden or craft, and your audiobook will continue playing. So when you're done, just tap on pause and that will stop that narrator. And then you can go ahead and close the app. I'm going to come back up to the top here and tap on back to leave the audiobook. And we're back on our shelf. Now let's go down to the navigation bar again. So now you see I have a new now reading bar. It's the 4 Winds. It's that audiobook I just opened. So remember, it's the last book that you have open in the Libby app. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that X to dismiss it again. Next to our shelf where we can find all of our current borrowed books or holds is the clock. And this is your activity timeline. And so think of clock and timeline as your history. So I'm going to tap in here. This is going to be the page that you can view all of your past history of your loans and holds, renewals, and returns. So I always tell people they get this kind of confused. The shelf is your current loans and holds, and the clock is all of your past history. Lastly, the last icon we're going to talk about is right in the very center, that Libby icon. This is our Libby menu. So you can think of the Libby menu as your app settings. Libby is currently telling me I have one notification with this red bubble on her head. So I'm going to tap on the Libby menu here so that it pops out of the side of the screen. And I think I have like one of my hairs attached to my glasses and it's tickling my nose. Okay. So the Libby menu. Up at the top, there is a notification waiting for me. We got the little red bubble telling me it was going to be here. I have a hold that is ready to borrow. I'm going to go ahead and swipe this out of the way to dismiss it. So I'm going to put my finger on the notification and then swipe it to the left. And that is going to give me this manage notification button here. I'm going to come in here to talk about notifications, but I just want to let you know that Libby's going to actually bring this menu to you the first time that you place a hold. So you're not going to have to come and find it like I am. Libby's going to bring it right to you, but I wanted to come in here to show you what that menu is going to look like. So up at the top are the ways that you can be notified about important events that happen in the Libby app. So you can ignore a notification here if you are interested in getting a notification about that particular event. You could also set your notifications to be menu badges. That is going to be an in-app notification. And you actually just saw what that looked like. So the first indication was the red bubble on Libby's head with the number inside. And then once we tapped on the Libby menu, it appeared in the box up at the top of the screen and I swiped it out of the way. So that is a notification that you have to have the Libby app open to see. And if you open Libby every day, a great option for you. If you don't open Libby every day, that's when I suggest to go with this blue notification line. That's going to be a push notification, and it will appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be looking at Libby, but you could also be looking at Facebook or reading the news, or your phone could be somewhere else in the house, and the notification will appear on your device's screen like a text message would. So the best option if you're not going to be opening Libby every single day. So those are the 3 ways you can be notified. Right underneath that are all of the things that you can be notified about. The most important is hold ready. And the reason it's important to be notified when your hold is ready is because when it's your turn on a waiting list, Libby's going to give you 3 days to take action on that book. And that book will be in limbo during those 3 days, and you will be the only person who can take action on it. The 3 actions you can take when your hold is ready is to either borrow the hold, cancel the hold, or have the hold delivered later. That just means that if you get busy and don't have time to read the book, you can ask Libby to keep you at the top of the wait list for a certain amount of time. Once that time period ends, you'll be the next person in line to receive the book. Now, if you don't either borrow, cancel, or deliver the title later in that 3-day period, Libby is going to automatically deliver the title later one time as a courtesy. That'll be a 7-day period. You'll get the book again, and another 3-day period will start. And that 3-day period is actually more specifically 72 hours. So 72 hours from the time that hold becomes available. In that second 3-day limbo period, if you don't take action again, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold, which means you'll have to go and find the book again and rejoin the wait list, which will put you at the bottom. So just be certain that you are getting those notifications of your holds becoming available. All right, I'm going to tap on back here. We just have 2 more things to talk about. The next is your libraries. So you can add additional library cards to Libby. These can all be from the same library if you have multiple people in your family who want to share a device, but they don't want to fight over all of the loan and hold limits. You can also add additional library cards from other libraries. So you can see here, I have a demo library. If I can't find a book I'm looking for there, I can tap into my second library card and see if that library has purchased a copy instead. Ohio is pretty awesome when it comes to libraries and getting library cards to other library systems. Honestly, Ohio has like one of the best library systems in the United States. I'm not sure exactly where you live, but here in Cuyahoga County, we have 4 different libraries that we can reach out to and get library cards to. So I always suggest reach out to the library that you might be interested in and see if you can get a card there. Last but not least, we have help and support. So if you come down to this red Get Some Help line here, this will allow you to find common solutions, including Joe talked about at the very beginning of the presentation, your copy to another device code. So if you have Libby set up on one phone and you have 6 library cards attached to it and you don't want to type all of those in on a second device, you can use a simple 8-digit code here, make that quick and easy. Up at the top, you also have a box here where you can type in a question or a keyword. One thing that I don't talk about in this presentation is returning titles, because I like to keep this 30 minutes to the most basic need to know features that you need to know. And because titles return automatically on their due date, that's something I don't prioritize here. But I like to use it as a way to show you how you can find out more information about the Libby app. So I'm going to type in return and tap on search. Now Libby's guessing what I'm looking for. I'm going to tap returning books. That is the question that I had there. And of course, she tells me that I don't need to worry about it because they return automatically. But if I did want to return a title early, say someone was waiting in line behind me and I wanted to make sure they could read, then I can return early. If you come down to the bottom here and can't find the answers that you're looking for, you can also ask our support team. They are a very friendly bunch of folks, and they're Libby experts. So they're going to know everything about the Libby app and answer any questions that you have or help you troubleshoot any deeper issues that you might run into. So from start to finish, that is the Libby app basics. I'm going to let Joe take back over on the screen here, and he's going to move on to some next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And thank you all so much. That wraps up the Getting Started demo of our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. We're about to head into our quiz period here, and then we'll roll over into our deep dive where we take a look at our favorite tips and tricks. So just a few reminders I have for you. Let me move some things on my screen. There we go. You can ask Marissa and I questions at any point, and of course you can do that anonymously. Just send those through that Q&A feature. We're happy to help and answer any questions you might have for us. Can't think of a question? We'll ask you instead, so stick around. We're about to test the knowledge you just picked up on the Libby app. And then we will roll into our deep dive session. Now, we do recommend, if you're feeling confident, kind of use that quiz as a test for yourself. If you feel like you're knocking those answers out of the park and you feel ready to absorb more info, stick around for that deep dive. But of course, as a reminder, you will be receiving our full recording tomorrow via email. So if you need to step away or if you are at max capacity, of course, you'll be able to review that as soon as tomorrow for the next 30 days. So I will give you kind of a last call before you do that. If you do decide to jump off at that last call or before we're done with the quiz, just as a reminder, when you leave the meeting, a survey will pop up in your browser. If you can fill that out and let Marissa and I know what you think of the session, it would really help us out so we can make even better sessions going forward. All right. I'm going to dive into our quiz here. These are anonymous questions, and there is an answer box for unsure. So please give us an answer if you know it or not, just so that way we can kind of gauge how we did this morning. So the question will pop up in the center of your screen. If you're in on a computer, just give it a vote. So question number 1, we're going to start in the navigation bar. What do you tap when you want to browse your library's collection? The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So this is when you don't know what you're looking for, you just want to walk around the library virtually. We're going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Okay, we've got the votes kind of split there. Now that we start off right away with a trick question. So you're both, all of our answers, both that are popping up, are pretty correct. But when you want to browse your library's collection, you tap on the library card. So you grab your library card and go to the library. This is where you can search by those different guides or the curated lists that your librarians put together for you, just like when you walk around the library and you see different end caps with beach reads or monthly celebration titles. When you want to do a specific search, that's when you go for the magnifying glass. You can type in a title, an author, a magazine name, or a series, and find that a little more specifically that way. So both are correct answers for searching, magnifying glass, and library card, but browse on the card and search on the glass. Awesome work, everyone. Going to move on to question number 2 here. Still in the navigation bar, what do you tap to find your loans and holds? So these are your current loans and holds. The magnifying glass, the library card, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So we took our library card and we went to the library. We searched on the magnifying glass. Now we want to find the books we're currently borrowing and waiting on. Close this in 3, 2, 1. All right, awesome. So let me get this started. So when you want to find your current loans and holds, tap on that stack of book icon to go to your shelf. From here, you can see a split of just your loans or holds. Or if you scroll through the shelf page, Libby will make some suggestions for you based off of kind of where you left off or what's on your shelf overall. Now, if you answered the clock, that is a very fair guess there, a good answer. The clock is your entire history within the Libby app. So that's going to be your past loans, holds, things like that, where your shelf is everything current. So what you're currently reading and listening and the things you are currently waiting to borrow. Awesome work, everyone. For question 3, we're going to hop into an ebook here. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? So select all that apply. You can change the text scale, the lighting, the book design, or the language. So there are 3 things you can change in an ebook to customize it to yourself: the size of the font, the background color, the font the book is in, or the language the book is in. I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Excellent work. This is our second trick question. So happy to see it. So let's pull up those appearance menus. We're going to tap in the center of the screen and then tap on that A icon, and the appearance menu will appear from the bottom. The first thing we can change is the text scale or the size of the font, so any book can be a large print book. Next, we're going to change our lighting. So of course, default is bright, but there's also sepia and dark mode. And then last, you can change the book design or the font the book is presented in. So by default, it comes exactly as it does from the publisher, but we highlight our open dyslexic font. But there are 3 other predefined fonts and a custom option, so you can even create your own if you'd like. Now, if you guessed language, this is a good choice as well, and that's where the trick lies. Your library offers titles in many different languages, but just like how you have to pick if you want an ebook or an audiobook, ooh, I keep forgetting I have a microphone right there, you also have to choose if you want a book in English or in a language other than English. So Marissa's actually going to show a tip and trick in a minute here that will cover setting some stuff around languages. Great work. Let's do question number 4. This is a quick one. True or false? Titles return automatically on their due date. And I'll close this in 3, 2, 1. Excellent work, everyone. 100% correct on that. Titles return automatically on their due date, so you never have to worry about fines or late fees. If you want to return a title early, go to your shelf by tapping on that stack of books. And then next to the title you want to return, tap Manage Loan, and then tap on Return Early. You'll have a confirmation screen here where you'll need to tap return one more time to make sure you don't accidentally return something you wanted to keep. It's a great option, even though books return on their due date, if there is a long wait list, so it can go to the next person if you're done early. You know, just a nice benefit there. All right, I know we are at time, but I just want to sneak in one more question and then we will move on. So final question here. When a hold becomes available, you can borrow the title, have the title delivered later, or cancel your hold. How long do you have to make one of these choices? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 1 week? And I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Another 100% correct. Excellent work, everyone. You have 3 days to return or to make a decision on if you want to borrow the title, have it delivered later, or cancel it. Libby makes it nice and easy to see this from your shelf. You can see when something is ready to borrow. It appears right at the top. You can tap Borrow, Deliver Later, and define how long you want to set on that wait list. Or if you tap Manage Hold, you can cancel your hold from there. Similar to everything else, there will be that confirmation as well. Excellent. So let me skip a little bit. There we go. Well, thank you all so much for completing this portion of the Getting Started segment of our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. We're about to head into our Libby deep dive session. As mentioned, this is your last call. If you want to hop off, if you've kind of absorbed everything you can for the morning, this is your chance to do that by tapping leave in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Of course, we welcome you to continue if you're comfortable and ready. And I would guess from these answers that most, if not all of you are. So without further ado, I'm going to get us rolling. If you are hopping off, just remember, please complete that survey if you can, so we can make impactful changes going forward. All right. Well, welcome to this portion of our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. If you're just joining us, my name is Joe, and I'm here with my teammate Marissa, and we're both digital book specialists from OverDrive. This is the part of the morning where we take a deeper dive into the library reading app Libby and talk about our favorite tips and tricks. I'm going to go through these quickly because I don't think we had anyone hop on at the 10:45 mark. So everyone who's here has already heard these housekeeping items, but as a refresher, we are recording and you'll receive that in an email tomorrow. You'll get sick of me saying that soon enough. You can ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. I bring this one up. We do this session a little differently. Marissa has about 30 minutes worth of tips and tricks to demo through, and then we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of live Q&A with demonstration on screen. So while most questions I just answer in the background, in this session, I tend to save those for that time at the end, and it will be marked as to be answered live. Also, of course, wanted to point out that Zoom ratio one more time. If when Marissa connects her screen, you can't see her full glorious iPad view, I will be sending out some directions on how you can adjust your settings there to make sure you can see the full screen. All right, so we have 4 tips and tricks for you this morning before we head into that Q&A session. First, we'll talk about reading magazines and the different ways to navigate through them. Then we'll look at filtering and refining lists to find books we like faster. Then we will wrap up with tagging titles and making notes and highlights. So I'm going to let Marissa get connected here with her iPad. Just as a reminder, she is using a demo library from OverDrive. Even though you'll see a different logo and some different collections on her screen, everything functions exactly the same regardless of the library you're in. Looks like Marissa's connected. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. And Marissa, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Joe. So just a final reminder before I jump in, if you can't see the navigation bar down at the bottom, Joe will chat out those instructions one more time so that you can change your Zoom ratio. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. We have lots of tips to discover, lots of good nitty-gritty details about the Libby app that make it even more exciting for us to use. So I'm going to jump into tip number 1, which is reading magazines. And that is why I'm currently on my shelf. I'm going to open up a magazine that I borrowed earlier today. So I'm going to open this up in Libby. I borrow it before our presentation so that I'm not waiting for all the images to load during our presentation. They're very image heavy. And I accidentally left it on page 15. So let me hop back to page number 1 here. There we go. So when you first open a magazine, you'll see those menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. The bottom is going to give you some thumbnails if you want to navigate that way. You can also see your page number on the screen here as well in this lower menu. When you're ready to begin reading your magazine, just tap in the center of the screen. That's going to make those menus drop out of the way. And then you can page forward just like in an ebook by tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen here. Now I'm going to get to the table of contents. There we go. One thing that's great about a magazine is that all of the articles within the table of contents are links. So you can tap on any of these to page directly to that article. And then once you are on the article page, down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this icon that looks like a little page moving up and down. If you tap on that, Libby is going to open that magazine article in this really nice menu here where your ebook appearance settings carry on over from your ebook. So if you made a large print font or made a dark background, that will carry on over. Otherwise, if you haven't set those yet, you'll recognize from the Getting Started session that A icon. You can change that here as well. The second thing I love about this menu, though, this article view, is that it's a scrolling option. So all of the font stays the same size, and we just have to scroll through this menu to read the article. When you're done and you want to move on to the next article and you want to skip all of the ads in the magazine, this pointer back or forward up at the top is going to allow you to navigate to the next article without having to look at all of those ads. If you want to be more specific and not go to just the next article, but want to view a full list of the articles, I already covered it. You can see that little table of contents button there. You can tap on that to view the table of contents and jump to an even deeper article in the magazine. So pretty simple there. This is a quick tip because magazines, we really try to make this magazine experience as easy and navigable as we could. I'm going to tap on back up in the top corner there. You can see it took me back to the magazine instead of that menu where all of the font was the same size and I could scroll. I know that I'm back in the magazine because that font is small again. All I have to do to leave the magazine is tap in the center. That's going to bring our menus back up on the screen, and then tap on back up in that left-hand corner there. And that takes me back to the shelf. So that was tip number 1, reading magazines. I'm going to move on to tip number 2, which is filtering and refining lists to find the books that you like faster. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of the screen in the navigation bar. Remember when we are browsing for books, we tap on that library card. I'm going to do that now. So when you want to find books you like faster, we're going to use filters to do that. So the first filter I'm going to show you is preferences, and that's going to filter all of your lists in Libby permanently until you change it again. So I'm on that library card tab looking at my entire library's digital collection. I'm just going to scroll down right below the catalog guides. Now, if you remember from getting started, I said these guides are going to change and be different from library to library. But one button that all of us will have, regardless of what library you have, is preferences. This is going to be a filter. So I'm going to tap on preferences here. And this will allow you to set a filter that, again, is saved and applied to all of your lists in Libby. So some good examples of some preferences you might set. Language is one that I tend to always set on my devices. So I can only really read in English. I can maybe get by with some French picture books, but generally English is the language that I'm looking for my books. So I'm going to come to language, and instead of any, I'm going to select English. Now, once I apply this, moving forward, anytime I search or browse for a book, Libby's only going to show me English titles. Some other preferences that are very common that we see all the time, Joe and I help patrons, usually in person in the before times. We will go and travel around with a digital bookmobile and help patrons learn Libby for the first time. Some common preferences that we see people using are format. If you specifically like eBooks and aren't interested in audiobooks or magazines, or vice versa, maybe you prefer audiobooks, you're not really interested in reading eBooks or reading magazines, you can set a format preference. Another very common one is audience. So anyone who has young kids who might be looking at their own device, you can set a juvenile preference that will make sure that they're not seeing any of that general or mature content. So a couple different options there for setting preferences. I'm going to stick with my English preference here and tap apply. That's going to refresh the page. If I scroll right back down to where I was underneath those catalog guides, you'll now see next to preference, I have a 1. That's just Libby letting us know you currently have one filter that's filtering all of your searches and lists, so that maybe if I know a book should be there and I'm not seeing it come up, it's probably that preference filtering it out. So that is the first way that you can start to filter and refine your lists. Now I'm going to talk about temporary filters. So the one I just showed you, again, it will stick and stay until you change it again. Now I'm going to show you, maybe you are going and want something specific right now, but you only want to set temporary filters. So for this, I'm going to have a little prompt here. I'm going to say tomorrow I'm going on a road trip in this fictional world with my mom. We're going to go to Dollywood. And so for this road trip, I want an audiobook because we can't read and drive. I need it to be in the audiobook format. I want it to be available now because our road trip is tomorrow. So I don't want to have to place a hold on any books. I want to let my mom pick the genre this time. So mystery, historical fiction is her favorite. I'm going to go ahead and search for one of those for her. And she's also a very fast reader, so she's read all of that old stuff. We're going to look for a new release. So those are going to be the 4 criteria that we're going for today. Audiobook that's available now, a new release, and it is a mystery historical fiction title. So I'm going to stay on this page here, that library card. And up at the top, if you stayed from getting started, you'll remember I said I love to use these filters for my browsing experience. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to available now. That's one of my criteria. So we'll get it out of the way really, really fast. Tap on available now. Up at the top, you can see we're looking at available titles. In English, remember that preference is filtering all of our lists moving forward. In this specific list, we can see 37,000 books, 21,000 audiobooks, and 2,000 magazines. I could be here all day, and I do not want to read. I don't want to sift through all the magazines or books. So I'm going to just tap on audiobooks here in the center. That's going to filter out those other 2 formats. So we already have 2 of our criteria done. We're looking at available audiobooks. Those are 2 of the 4. So now I'm going to come down to refine. That's here on the right side of the screen. When you tap on refine, you'll notice that it's the same categories as preferences. The difference is preferences are sticky and stay until you change them again. I know I say it a lot, but it is good to know. Refining is temporary for the search that you're making at that moment. So I'm going to apply filters here in refine, but the next time I perform a search, it's going to revert back to showing me everything that's in English. Okay. So here in refine, I'm going to tap on subjects and select mystery. You'll see our 21,000 audiobooks now fell to 2,800. I'm going to come back to refine. Right now we're looking at mystery titles, but my mom likes mystery historical fiction titles. So I'm going to add a second subject here, come back to subject, and now I'm going to select historical fiction. That number has now dropped to 205. I like to point this out so that you can see, you can find niche subjects. You're not just limited to a broad subject like mystery. You can continue adding subject filters to really narrow that down. I've gotten to about 5 subject filters before Libby's telling me that I'm looking for something way too specific. There's no such book that exists. So usually I stick with 2 or 3, but just so you know, that's an option for you. I'm going to come back to refine one more time. We have one more filter here to apply, and that is new releases. So I'm going to come down and tap on sort by. If you have a smaller device like a phone, you might need to scroll to see sort by. But there you'll have the option to sort many different ways. For this, I'm going to choose release date. So we started out our search with over 70,000 titles, and I'm now narrowed down to 205 audiobooks that are available now in English that are mystery historical fiction. And my list is showing me the newest books up at the top. And as we make our way down, they get older. So that's tip number 2, how to filter and refine your searches and browsing so that you can find the books that you like faster. Now we're going to move into tip number 3, tagging titles. And I am going to stay on this page here. It's a good page to talk about this feature. Tags are great for anyone who wants to organize books, either books that they want to read in the future, books that they maybe loved and want to keep track of that way. I like to make tags for books I read with my nieces and nephews. I even tag books that I'm maybe going to purchase for gifts for people later. So tags are really robust. You can do tons of different things with them, organize as many ways as you want. This is one of the main differences between the OverDrive and the Libby app. So OverDrive gives you a history as well as a wish list, whereas Libby's tagging feature allows you to create as many tags as you want, and you can name them whatever you want. So the world is our oyster. So I'm going to go ahead and tag a title here for you to see. So as we scroll through this list here, maybe I come across In the Garden of Spite. It's not a book that I want to borrow right now, but I want to save it for later. What I'm going to do is tap on tag. It's that third option down. From there, in the tagging menu, I can add a new tag. That is what I'll do, but first I can also show you there are also tags here that I could just add to an existing tag I created. So I could tap here to add it to my wish list. I probably want to add it to my cooking tag. These regular tags do not have any smarts to them. They're not, they don't have any special abilities. They're just tags that I created to organize books. Smart tags down below, on the other hand, do have special abilities. The first smart tag that you see here, everyone starts out with in Libby, and that is a little red receipt icon, and it's going to be your borrowed tag. So anytime you borrow a book in Libby, Libby will automatically tag it with this tag here and keep track of all the books that you've borrowed in the past. The next one that we have that says magazines, this is a notify me tag, and it is specific to magazines right now. And what it will do is the first time you borrow a magazine, Libby will prompt you to create your notify me tag. You can name it whatever you want. I named mine magazines for simplicity's sake. Once you create your notify me tag, you can then tag additional magazines, and Libby will alert you of any time a new issue is added to your library. So you don't have to keep track and keep searching and seeing if new issues became available. Libby's going to let you know. So those are the difference between smart tags and regular tags. Let's just go ahead and create a new tag for In the Garden of Spite. And let's say that I want to read it, but I don't want to read it right now. I'm not in the mood. And I have to be in a particular mood for a mystery title. So I do this a lot on my personal device. I'll just create genre tags so that when I'm in the mood for that particular genre, I can pop in and borrow. I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. And you can see that tag has now applied here to the book. Now you can see I have other tags applied as well. Here's my wish list. So really, in the case of looking for an audiobook with my mom, I would probably just go ahead and borrow the War Widow straight away because I already saw I tagged it in the past as a wish list item. If I didn't and I kept scrolling down, though, I could also see that I have a book that's borrowed as well. So this was something I borrowed in the past. I've already read it. I can just go ahead and skip over it in my search. Otherwise, I'd probably read the first 50 pages or listen to the first 20 minutes before I realized that I had already read it before. So that is how you can tag titles and then what they will look like in your searches. I'm going to pop over to the shelf. Remember that stack of books down at the bottom in the navigation bar. And this is where your tagged lists will be. So up at the top, you have your filters for your loans and your holds, and then your tags will show up right after. I'm going to tap on more. That shows us our full list of tags. So it'll always show you two, but if you tap on more, you can see a full list. I'm going to just pop into the to be read. So let's look at my wish list here. One little tip inside this tip that I always like to show off is over here on the right side of the screen, you'll see a library card icon. You'll actually see this icon many places in the Libby app. You'll see it in your searches. You'll see it in your browsing, on your shelf. Anytime you see that icon there, if you tap on it, you'll be able to borrow or place a hold directly from the screen without having to go and view the title details or anything like that. But more importantly, the reason I show you this tip is if you add multiple library cards to Libby, you'll be able to see how many copies are available at each of your libraries. So maybe this is on a wait list, a really long wait list, and I don't want to wait that long. I could tap in and see if there's another copy available at a different library that I have access to. So a nice little feature that I like to just sneak in to that tip there. It's one of my favorites. All right, but to really finish this tip off, up at the top, you'll see an actions button at the top of your tagged lists. If you tap on actions, this will give you the ability to rename the tag or delete the tag if you're not interested in that particular tag anymore. Even the smart borrowed tag you can delete as well. I want to show off exporting your tag. So this is how you can export your tags lists for printing or in an email. So once you tap on export, it'll give you 3 different options here. You'll figure out which option works best for you. I like table. It's nice and clean, a nice and clean list there. Up in the top right-hand corner, you can see the share button. This is not specific to Libby. The share button is universal. It always looks like that no matter what app you're using. It's a little box with the arrow pointing up. If you tap on that, this will allow you to send your tag list in a message or an email. And you can also scroll down for the print option as well. I like to print mine out and take it to the physical library. And you might too, so I like to point that out. So that is tip number 3, tagging titles. I'm going to go ahead and tap on done here in the corner and come back to my shelf. And we're going to talk about our last tip of the day. This is making notes and highlights. So notes and highlights are great for anyone who's in book clubs, students reading for school. Joe and I just like to annotate for fun. We're monsters. So if you like to annotate, then you can get a lot out of this tip here. I'm going to open up a audiobook. So I'm going to open up that one that we borrowed in our getting started session. Let me just pop ahead here. There we go. When you come across a passage that you would like to reference later on, what you're going to do is tap and hold the first word in that passage. So I'm going to move my mouse slightly to the left so you can see what happens when I put my finger on the word either. So I'm tapping and holding my finger on either. If you tap quickly, then it's going to turn the page. So make sure as soon as your finger touches the screen, it stays on the screen. And then drag it across the screen until your full passage is highlighted in blue. Once it is, you can then lift your finger up off the screen and the highlight menu will appear down at the bottom. So you can choose different colors here to stay organized. Let's choose green. And then once it's the color of choice that you wanted, just tap on the highlight to make a note. So I have written full paragraphs here for my book clubs that I'm in. I'm just going to type in, this is a note for the sake of the demonstration, and then tap on save. And now I'm going to page forward so that I can show you how you can reference those notes later. So I paged forward a little bit here, and now I'm going to tap on the center of the screen. That is going to bring up those menus. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the multiple bookmark icon there. That is what we're looking for. So I'm going to tap those multiple bookmarks. And here is the note and highlight that I made. So we can tap on this highlight to reference it back. And then you'll see that if you tap on the highlight again, that will allow you to view the note as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on done here, and I'm going to leave this ebook so I can show you how you can reference these notes and highlights even after the title has returned to the library. So you can look at your notes and highlights when the title is in your possession, but you can also find them even once the title is back in the library's possession. So what you're going to do is look for the details page. Now you can do that by searching for the book and tapping on the jacket cover in the magnifying glass. An easier way to find it is through this red receipt here. Remember, that's all of your borrowed books that you have had in the past. I'm going to tap on that tag and just find the book here in this list. So the guest list, that's the book that I was looking for. I know I've made notes and highlights in the past. So I'm just going to tap on the jacket cover from this screen to view its details page. On the details page, you'll have a reading journey. The reading journey starts as soon as you borrow a book and then captures any actions that you take with the book. So that's what I'm going to tap here on the details page, reading journey. Up at the top of the screen, you'll have an actions button. You'll be familiar with this from the tip number 3 for taggings. If you tap on actions, you'll see your export reading data option. This is a way that you can export your notes and highlights for email or printing or messaging, just like I showed you in the tagging tip. If you tap right outside that box, if you scroll down on your reading journey, you'll also have a timeline for this title, and it will include your highlights, which you can tap each individual highlight to view what the highlight was, as well as the note you made. So 2 different options there for how you can find and reference those notes and highlights that you've made in the past, even if you don't have the book on your shelf any longer. That wraps up tip number 4 and our last tip of the day. I'm going to let Joe take back over here to get us into the Q&A portion of our second session here.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. So as Marissa just said, that wraps up our demo for our tips and tricks session. We now welcome and invite you to send questions our way. We will happily show those steps off on screen here. And of course, if no questions come through, we'll give everyone a little bit of extra time back to their morning. Take your time, send those in through Q&A, and we'll wait to show those off.
And you can even do that anonymously as well. So if there was a feature we didn't talk about that you saw, you can ask about that. If you wanted to know more about audiobooks, if you wanted to know anything about the differences between OverDrive and Libby, we will answer anything. So
exactly. Next 10 or so minutes are completely yours. All right, so while we wait for some questions to come through, Marissa and I have 2 quick tips that we like to keep in our back pockets. These are both kind of customization tips. So they're both found in the Libby menu, so we'll tap on that center icon in our navigation bar. And this will open up that Libby menu. So the first one is kind of an appearance setting. If you tap on Libby's face, you can customize her skin tone. So we believe representation is important. You can pick from the 4 options there, or leave Libby in her default kind of emoji skin tone. The other option is how you can customize the color of your library card. So I love this for organization. You can see them there along the sides. If we tap on See Library Cards, and then tap on Actions on the card we want to change, we can choose Change Library Colors. So from here, you can pick your favorite colors or different color coding ways you want to do things. I point this out because if you are a family sharing a device and you have 5 library cards from your local library at Findlay Hancock County, you're not going to want your kids to be fighting, or you might not want it to be fighting with your partner if they use half of your holds on accident. I know I'd be a little murderous if I went to borrow a book and I couldn't because someone used all of my loans or holds. So it's a great way to kind of color code. You know, I know my colors are this and this, and their colors are this and that. Great way to do that. Also, if you have access to multiple libraries, like Marissa mentioned, Ohio's pretty friendly with access to library cards. Just reach out to your into a library you're interested in if you want to join their system as well. What I find, because I've got a few Ohio cards myself, is that libraries are big fans of the same two shades of blue, and their library cards all, you know, kind of default to that color and end up looking the same. And then I don't know which card I'm borrowing on. So sometimes even though I'm not sharing a device with anyone, sometimes I just customize those cards so I know, okay, this one is Cuyahoga County, this one's Cleveland Public, things like that. So 2 little quick tips to throw in. Now, Marissa, anything you wanted to show off or mention?
I will just show off one more time how to find help and support. It is
Perfect.
so easy in the Libby app, and really beneficial that you can access help and support directly from the app. So if you go to that Libby menu there in the center of the screen, and then come down to the bottom under help and support, you can tap on get some help. Again, this is where you can find your copy to another device. And then you can also ask questions. What's another one? Maybe we'll do define. Oh, Libby, you trickster. She doesn't have a define one. But this is a perfect example of maybe you wanted to know how to define words and Libby isn't giving you the answers. You can then visit the help site or ask our support team. So if you tap on ask our support team, you can say, I have a question, and then type in your question. I don't know how to define words. Can you do that in Libby? And they will answer it for you and give you the directions on how to do that. So that is how you can access that help and support.
That's awesome and super helpful. One of my favorite features about the Libby app, being able to ask our friendly neighborhood tech support team anything when I need just a little bit more help. The other thing, if you could just go back a couple steps that I wanted to point out in that same menu, is if you are looking for a feature that you think Libby should have, there is also a suggestion box. So in with those common solutions, actually right under copy to another device is here's an idea for the future, or for a future suggestion box. And it's very similar. You can type in, hey, I think Libby should be able to do this, or I'd like to do that. And we take those suggestions, they go directly to our developers and they implement them as they can. All right, well, let me just click on over here. Thank you everyone so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time and your attendance and patience as we went through our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar. As a reminder, you'll receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to our recorded session. That's the earliest you can access it, around this time tomorrow. That link is good for 30 days. But if you'd like to keep that recording permanently, there's a download button in the upper right-hand corner of the video player screen. You can't miss it. Once you download that video, it's yours forever. You're welcome to share that with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. So with all of that said, I'm about to end our meeting here. When I do, a survey will pop up in your screen. If you can take a moment and fill that out for us, we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you all so much and happy reading.
Happy reading.